a great time now to invest in Western Australian property. I'll start with some of the key fundamental drivers that are stimulating property in Perth, Western Australia. One of the sectors that's contributing to that is the mining sector. If you have a look at this graph, it demonstrates 30 projects in Western Australia in the mining sector. And if you add up the number of projects combined in every other state, it's almost the equivalent of the number of projects in WA alone. I think this demonstrates the amount of revenue that will be generated out of that sector and the amount of income and opportunity for investment that will come from that. There's a value of $15 billion that's in the northwest of Broome. This project, Pluto LNG, once again, 2023, $5.6 billion startup. Prelude, FLNG, $8 to $9 billion, and it's designed to stay on location and operate for at least 25 years. One more, Vera, value $4.3 billion, the northwest coastline of WA. Once again, expected by the end of 2023 with a start-up in the first quarter of 24 and full production second quarter of 2024. So we're not even at those key points for those projects to start. Once again, what that will do is it will stimulate the need for employment. And if you have a look at the employment graph, which I'll jump to here, this is what's occurring at the moment in Western Australia in the employment sector. Employment in WA is at an all-time low. Just go to the slide here. And what that's done, the rental market and vacancy rates in Perth have dropped as low as 1.2%. We haven't seen this for a long time in WA. What that's done, it's put a lot of pressure on rentals, a lot of pressure on renters and the ability to actually find a place. It's led to significant growth in rental returns. We've seen the same properties as some of my team at least go up to the tune of 20-25% in 12 months in the amount of rental that's been received. I'll go to residential, Perth snapshot here. You will see, this little button here, you will see here at the moment there's about 8,521 properties listed on the market at this point in time. If we go back to the same week in last year, 9,200. So there's a 10% drop there in the supply of properties on market at this point in time in WA. Now that number quite often would sit around 12,000 properties on market. So there's a definite shortage of supply at this point in time, and demand is outweighing supply, and that is the key fundamental factor for growth going forward. This slide here shows the median house price in Perth, Western Australia. As you can see, whilst yes, we have had an increase, if we compare it from back in July 17, 5 years ago, we're actually not that far above where it was. It was only that downturn that occurred that makes it feel like the property prices have come up rapidly. If you take a long-term strategic view and look at that graph, I strongly believe there's a lot more growth going forward. If we look at the apartment snapshot, the same applies, but at different rates. So if we go back to 2017 here, the median price, and we look where we are today, we're not quite back to where we were. So once again, I think there's still the opportunity in general for growth in that sector. However, I will say you need to be extremely careful in the apartment sector in Perth that you do analyse the supply and demand ratios of the product, especially in the apartment sector. We'll touch on supply and demand ratios. What we've found in the residential sector, what can have a major effect on price is supply and demand. A couple of areas in Perth have been rezoned to allow high-rise apartments. People from the east come over, they see it, they see the apartment, they see the proximity to the river, and they say, wow, this seems excellent value. Coming from interstate, it looks like it's excellent value, but the opportunity may be there for developers to produce another 20 buildings of the same in that area. What that does over time is it leads to possible oversupply. And when supply outweighs demand, and then you might have somebody who fire sales a few of the apartments or something like that, you can see your investment possibly come off very quickly. So it's very important when investing, not only to analyse the sector you're investing in and supply and demand, but also to analyse the opportunity for a lot more of the same to be created in and around that area. Jumped a few slides, so I'll go back some of that. Vision of an astute property investor. Over 30 years in property, we've been involved in all different sectors in property, commercial, residential, development, project management, asset management. I think if I was to be asked what is the vision of an astute property investor, I think it's the opportunity to identify an opportunity ahead of others. And I see WA as falling in that category right now. I'll touch on residential versus commercial because a lot of people that have come to the stand today have been in two minds as to whether residential or commercial is a better investment for them. And I've seen that quite a lot today, so we've put a slide in to discuss that. Residential, I think if you have a plan to utilise the property at some point in time, maybe not initially, maybe in 3 to 5 years, or down the track next year, whatever it might be, then I think it makes a lot of sense to invest into residential. Or if the residential property is fairly unique and it's very difficult to create a lot more of it, then once again it makes a lot of sense for investment. When you compare the residential to commercial, you'll find that normally in commercial you're getting a much better yield from the property initially, and the costs associated with owning the property in most cases are passed on to the tenant, whereas in the residential sector you find yourself exposed to taxes, rates and taxes, land tax, water rates, council rates, and also management fees and repairs and maintenance. In the commercial sector, a lot of those costs can be passed on to the tenant, depending on how the lease is structured. Obviously, each lease is individual. The advantage the residential investment has is the bank will normally give you a higher loan-to-value ratio in the residential sector, often 70 to 80%. It's quite common in that sector, whereas commercial banks will be more conservative and often be in and around 50 to 55% on a loan-to-value ratio. That means you need to come up with more equity to invest in the commercial property market. One of the other advantages of commercial is a lot of the leases have a fixed increase built into the lease. So every year, the amount of money coming off the property can automatically be increased through a rent review mechanism that's built into the lease itself. It doesn't matter if you're looking at commercial or residential property, I think once again, the supply and demand ratios are very important of whatever property you're looking to invest into. The beauty of the commercial sector is you're relying on the tenant and the business within your investment to actually be the income for the serviceability of the bank loan if you're taking a bank loan. And the banks like that. They're not as focused on the borrower, they're more focused on the asset and the tenant that's inside the asset as well. I think the commercial opportunity in Western Australia right now is fantastic. If you look at this service station, this transacted at a yield of 6.49% per annum. It was around 2 years ago. It would probably be a little bit lower today. If that same service station with the same tenant was located in Sydney or Melbourne, there's a very good chance that it would transact at 10 to 20% higher in price than it did in Western Australia. That means the yield that you would get from your investment would be lower, possibly around 5.25%. So what we're finding is a lot of people that are in the commercial property market, Sydney, Melbourne, and in the east coast of Australia, are now shifting their focus to Western Australia and looking to invest in commercial property in Western Australia as well. One factor that I think is very important when considering residential property is we found over the years from our buyers 3 key ingredients. Views, number 1, access to the river or water or the beach, not too far away, number 2, and number 3, a vibrant lifestyle, preferably within a walking distance from the property. We found that people today like to be close to infrastructure, shopping centres, medical centres, services, banks, etc. If you can invest in locations that has good quality infrastructure and ideally within walking distance from the property, I think that's very important. In addition to that, if it has close proximity to the river or the ocean, we love that as well. And if you have views, well, that's a bonus again. Touch on rental vacancy rates and the housing market. So just to sum up Perth, Western Australia, I think the time, if you look at some of those slides and the key fundamentals that will come off that mining sector and the other sectors, I think that presents a great opportunity to invest in WA. Yes. Mining projects. Well, some of those there haven't started. Some of them continuous projects coming on, because that northwest coastline that we have there is predominantly just all mining focused. So even though one will finish, something else will start and it's normally larger than the prior. So I think you'll see continuity of flow in the next 20 to 25 years.
The supply factors that you mentioned, I believe there are a lot of buildings or houses being built at the moment. How do we know that it wouldn't be oversupplied in the future?
Very good question. And at the moment, we have a major shortage in Perth for housing. The oversupply might occur in all sectors, so I think it's very hard to generalise the whole industry and say is there an oversupply or not. Once again, I think it's very important before you invest to drill down and look at that item. Is it an apartment? So we go and look at the apartment, we study the area that you're looking to invest into, and we look at the previous data and the take-up, and then look at the opportunity for a lot more of the same to be created in that area, because that could lead to an oversupply. And as you know, that determines price and possibly increase or devalue in price. I think infill touch on infill. If you're looking at a project, investing in a project that's in an infill suburb, I think that's probably a little bit safer in most cases than in an area where you are, more on the outskirts. In saying that, there's probably a difference between, I should mention as well, house and land packages versus apartments. I've had a lot of people come by the stand and ask the question, what is best for an investment going forward? So I'll touch on that quickly. So as you know, land often appreciates and a building depreciates. Right now in Perth, there is a strong demand for land. Anything that has land component in it, in my view, is possibly, depending on supply and demand ratios, a better investment opportunity going forward than, say, an apartment or a structure title. In Perth, there are three types of titles. It's a little bit different to the eastern coast. You have what's called a green title, where you actually own the land. Then you have a survey strata, where you still own the land. And then a built-for strata, where you only own from the inside leaf of the cavity within, and the rest is referred to as common property. So in that case, you don't really own any land component. You don't have the ability to pull the house down and rebuild it if you wanted to at some point in time, or you don't have the opportunity to paint the wall without asking the neighbours or the other people in the complex. So what we're finding is, investments that have land component in their investment normally are outperforming investments that have the Australian title, but not in every case. Any other questions? Any other questions? Question? Yes.
This commercial property has higher vacancy rate.
Once again, it depends on the sector. There's so many sectors to commercial property, and we provide asset management services to different sectors of those properties. If we analyse, say, the office market at this point in time, as you know, with COVID, a lot of people working from home have remodeled their businesses, have focused more on technology as opposed to the vacancy rate has increased in the office sector significantly. Also medical, if anything, there's probably a shortage. So it just depends on which sector, and I think you need to really analyse that sector in the commercial market before investing. I like retail because retail normally there is a goodwill associated with the business that is housed within the property. So if, say, a husband and wife are running a business, a newsagent for example, and they run it for 15 or 20 years, then they've had enough of that business and they want to move on. There's a goodwill associated with that business. You can't just pick it up and take it down the street. So normally they will sell that business and a new operator will come in and continue on. With an office, it's very easy to relocate the business. Someone builds a brand new office down the street, they come along and they say, I will give you, 6 months rent free, and it's brand new, etc., and the rent will be the same or something. So it's quite easy for you to reposition your business down the street. So you don't have the goodwill associated with the location in that situation. So there's different sectors within the commercial sector that I think each one needs to be analysed before investing into. Yes, sir.
So my question was, what exact service do you provide?
The services we provide as a company, we operate across a few different sectors. So we are a real estate consultancy business, and I'm a licensee. Outside of that, we offer project management services if someone wants to develop, and we also offer asset management services if someone wants to invest into the commercial sector as well. And in addition to that, under our license, we're able to offer a buyer's agency investment as well. But you can come and see us on the stand just up at the top corner, just on the way out. Yes. I don't have it here, but I think I've got it back on my iPad. If you want to drop by the stand, I might have that here. I did have it in the last presentation. The yields for residential, probably it varies a little bit depending on if it's luxury residential or non-luxury residential. Luxury residential, what we're finding is the rental doesn't, there seems to be a barrier of around about $2,000 per week in Perth, even in the luxury sector. We've broken that a couple of times. We've set deals at $3,000 a week, $2,500 a week. They're very difficult to set. What we're finding probably, I would say in the order of 3 to 4% might be a general range. If you can achieve that, I think it's quite good. And what we're finding out of in apartments 1, 2 and 3 bedroom, we're finding the 2 bedroom is probably the best return ratio. 2 by 2 allows 2 people to come in and maybe share the cost of the rental, 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and that you tend to get a little bit more return on a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom product. Or 1 bedroom if it's located close to universities or hospitals or things like that, in strong demand as well. Yes. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming today and listening to our presentation. Please feel free to come by the stand if you have questions. Thank you.